The Leafs still have a lot of work to do, and what they do over the rest of this offseason will have massive implications, not only for next year, but for the future of the organization. And there's a lot left to be done this offseason, whether that's adding to the forward group, whether that's trading Nick Robertson, or potentially moving Mitch Marner. There's a lot that still has to be done. The Toronto Maple Leafs are also getting linked to a lot of different players. I'll break all that down on the stream. Welcome in everybody to this stream. Darius, it's been a while. It's been a very long time since we went live, and there's a lot to go over today. But the Leafs, this is kind of the not halfway point necessarily, but we're getting there, getting to the halfway point of the offseason, and just kind of going to evaluate what's going on with the Leafs currently, what their current outlook is looking like, what they haven't done, what they have done. There's a few things to go over today, but interesting. It's the NHL season's getting closer and closer each day, Darius.
It is, yeah. It's about I guess, the halfway point, like you said. And I think it's pretty interesting so far through the off season that, I talked to a lot of older Leaf fans, and a lot of them are saying like the team didn't get much better and they're really upset with the moves that the Leafs made. And then I talked to younger Leafs fans, and they're really happy with the Leafs move so far and what Brad Living has done, right? So I don't know exactly where that disconnect is happening, but we're going to look through some stuff today and kind of dissect it and get some, questions from the comments and all that stuff. So that's going to be fun. But yeah, it's been a pretty, I don't know, interesting offseason so far, Nick. I mean, I thought that July 1st was pretty good for the Leafs, right? And I thought Brad Living did a pretty good job with what he's working with, right? Obviously, the team could be better, but with the salary cap structure that they're working with, I think he did a pretty good job. But it's been interesting so far. There's a lot going on actually with the Leafs. Like Scotiabank Arena is getting majorly renovated. I had no idea. Apparently, there was like a WWE event there a couple weeks ago, and people were walking through like construction to get to their seats and stuff. I had no idea that was going on. So the arena is going to look different next year. The team might look a little bit different. And moving forward too, right? Like we don't know if Mitch Marner is going to be a Leaf in 25, 26. It's going to be very interesting. So lots happening right now.
Yeah, what's up, Shane, Paolo V? Yeah, I'm curious to see what everyone else's opinion is. It's been a while since we streamed, so we've all had some time to digest their moves and I guess lack of moves since July 1st. They really haven't made many moves other than the Connor Dewar signing, which happened yesterday. And we're gonna also dive into an article that kind of rips the Leafs a little bit, which is gonna be very interesting to do. And yeah, what's up, Paolo? It's gonna be interesting. We can kind of dive into it now. And we're also gonna be going over just the lines and overall, a lot of stuff to go over today. There's a few things to discuss, and you mentioned it. There's a lot of stuff happening, not necessarily personnel-wise with the Leafs, but just in general, whether that's coaching staff. Obviously, Wes Clark is gone now. We haven't streamed since the replacement. Obviously, they have their new guy in that position. Defense is seriously upgraded. I would agree with that. Love your videos. What's up, Kyle? Thank you for that.
Thanks,
So
Kyle.
thank you. I'll ask a bunch of questions and talk to you guys throughout the stream because it's been a very long time. I don't know how you guys talk about such similar things every day. Not a knock at all. Respect to that. Go crazy. There's not a whole lot to there's not a whole lot to discuss right now
Dog
with
days
the
of summer
Leafs.
right now, but
Yeah,
there is still news every now and then,
still
right?
some sort of
So
news every day,
still
and
some
that's
stuff.
the thank you, Fanatic. We appreciate the support.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that means a lot. But yeah, so this article basically dropped. The Toronto Maple Leafs summer just went from bad to worse. So this is the perspective of the Leafs haven't done enough, basically saying as far as the team roster go, who knows? The general manager seems afraid to make a trade. They didn't bring back Tyler Bertuzzi. They didn't bring back, or they haven't traded yet, Nick Robertson. Sorry, the blue line's better, but not by much. We'll dive into the rest of it in a second, but I just want to see what your thoughts are with all of this stuff here, Darius. You mentioned it. A lot of the older Leafs fans aren't really a fan of some of the stuff, and I've seen younger Leafs fans too saying they're not a fan of some of the moves or lack of their lack of moves they've done. But I think overall, I'm not super upset, and I think one of the conversations I want to have with you all today is the Nick Robertson stuff. And do we want
Yeah.
Nick Robertson to be traded?
I don't think so. We'll touch on Nick Robertson in a second, but in terms of like this article, I can rip the Leafs sometimes, right? And we've been critical of the Leafs on live streams and videos in the past, especially when they were eliminated from the playoffs. I think a lot of this, honestly, lies on the shoulders of Brendan Shanahan. And a couple days ago when we did a video, I was expressing that I'm kind of concerned that if Shanahan does get let go at the end of next season, we're just kind of going over and over again around in circles, just firing people, right? And I think like the Leafs used to do that and they were terrible. And this article kind of gets into it at the bottom there where, we're getting back to the days where they fire Brian Burke with no cause, right? Just because they kind of feel like it. So I'm kind of hoping that it doesn't happen that way and there is some accountability taken. But I have a hard time personally putting a lot of this on Brad Treliving. He inherited a salary cap structure that is horrid. It's horrible. The way the team was built, we know can't win. We knew that in 2021. It should have been, played with or dismembered after 2021. We're still at this point talking about the same issues. So I can't really blame Treliving for that. Once he gets some salary cap space, I'm interested to see what he does with the team because I kind of like the moves he made this offseason. But again, it's moves within the parameters of what he can do with the salary cap, right? So obviously he can make the team much better on paper if there was no salary cap or anything like that. But it's interesting. And then when you look at Nick Robertson too, we've talked about it the last couple of days. He shouldn't be traded, right? I mean, logically speaking, he shouldn't be traded. They should work with him, right? Him and Berube should work together. The coaching staff, new coaching staff, they should work together. I think he should be on the power play, whether it's the second unit or whatever. They have one shooting threat on their power play, especially when Nylander's playing the point there, or they kind of like cycle around, whatever it is. Matthews is the only shooting threat, and every team has caught on to that. So why don't you have another one? Robertson has arguably the second best shot on the team. Have another option there. I think it would be good for them. So there's a lot that they can do and play with. But I think logically speaking, trading Robertson, you're probably going to lose the trade. It's like a Mitch Marner trade. You're going to lose that trade.
Yeah, I'm curious. If you're in the chat right now, just type yes or no. Do you want to trade Mitch, or do you want to trade Nick Robertson? Just a yes or a no. Shane saying get the Collins working instead of going on cruises. I was still making videos from the cruise, Shane. It was a half vacation. But yeah, we'll definitely get those going for next 2 weeks from now, probably, or whenever our next stream is, because Darius is the one taking vacation here.
I'm going next. Yeah,
we're going in there, but I'll work on that for sure. What they can do right now without paying for it? The answer is yes. Tony saying Treliving hasn't done enough to position the team to be in a better cup contender. That's up for debate. Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to last year. If you don't believe in the core four, then you probably wouldn't think they're in a better spot. I don't know if I believe in the core four, and we know that back in 2021, that was probably the time to push the reset button if you were the Toronto Maple Leafs, specifically regarding, I mean, a lot of their core four and Mitch Marner, because of the trade clause that is ultimately hindered their ability now to move Mitch Marner. Yes or no, depending on the trade. Yeah, I don't know exactly what Nick Robertson's value is at this point. I can't imagine it's anything crazy. You can see his stats here again: 27 points in 56 games. We actually had a video on him today and what his trade value could be, potentially sending him back to Kyle Dubas and the Pittsburgh Penguins. But okay, so half yes, half no for Nick Robertson. I think if the value is there, I wouldn't be opposed to it because he requested it. But I would not mind to see what's under his potential is under Craig Berube. Sorry.
Right, and I think that's the only thing that's gonna, like, if Sheldon Keefe was still here, I think that this player is gone because it just wouldn't make sense. But it's a new coach, right? He might get a new opportunity, and maybe he sees it that way too, right? Because he is still a very good player. I think he is a great player. And he just has to clean up some things that I think you can clean up, right? Like some of it is just decision making. Like, hey, probably don't do this in the neutral zone anymore. Let's work on that, right? So I think they can work with him. So it's pretty interesting to go back to like the Treliving not making a Stanley Cup contender. There's not much like he can do with the salary cap structure, honestly. And I think that they have upgraded the defense if you want to look at the defense compared to last year too. But I'm just not sure what he can do, right? Because they know they have some things in the pipeline too, like Hildeby. They kind of got to wait for him. Like you can't go out and get what goalie are they going to go out and get at this point, right? We've talked about John Gibson. He doesn't want to play in Toronto. We talked about Allmark from Boston. He had Toronto on his no trade list, right? So I don't know what goalie you can go out and get now. You have to develop one, and he's on the way. So
they went with Anthony Stolarz. They went with him, which again and they've re-signed Joseph Wall to an interesting deal. Robertson is too small and a Marner clone. He definitely has his deficiencies, I'd say, but the left wing especially is kind of weak. Yeah, they need to add some wingers to this team if they want to compete. I mean, their top six. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know. They need to. We've been saying this. It's like playing a broken record.
The season we're not even close to the season yet. We're gonna have to go through preseason and stuff, and people might think I'm crazy, but I think to start the year, Robertson should play with Matthews and Domi. That's just what I'm feeling at this point, because Nyes showed last year. I don't think he's ready for the top line. He could take a step this year, but he kind of looked like he was lagging behind, like he was just on the line because they had to figure out the rest of their lineup. So I think like Robertson should play higher in the lineup. I thought he had some good chemistry with Matthews as well. It's double threat, shooting threat. You never know who's going to shoot the puck on that line. So that could work out. I don't want to see Marner with Matthews anymore. We know, it kind of works, but I think they're better split up. So that could be interesting too. And I think Domi gives a little bit of that edge on that line too. So I don't know, something like that, but
yeah, I mean, they did bring back Domi. That was the best move. Chris Tanev, I guess you can make the argument for
probably Chris Tanev. Yeah.
Probably the biggest splash at the very least, but Yeah, you can see here the Leafs are stuck with the core four for at least one more year. The plan is to push the reset button. The time will come at the end of next season. So, I mean, really, next year is, we kind of spoke about last season how that was the turning point. It's really this year because if they lose, then contracts are starting to expire. John Tavares, Mitch Marner, like all these guys, then they're really going to reset. So it seems like what was our worst nightmare at the start of this offseason is probably going to come true, but a bit not as bad because they really upgraded their defensive core. They have a new coach in Craig Berube, but they're going to run it back with Craig Berube and see what happens with that. But again, it's really going to be interesting to see if Berube can fix some of the deficiencies in Nick Robertson's game, because obviously it is just a coach after all. You can hide him around better players, put him on the first line with Matthews, and see what goes from there. But it's going to be up to Nick Robertson to play, but if they get rid of Nick Robertson, they still need to add a wing, whether or not they trade or keep Nick Robertson. They need to add more threats, specifically scoring threats that they lost in Tyler Bertuzzi, and if they trade Robertson, losing him as well.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people are saying they're thin on the left wing, but I think if a lot of things go right, they're actually looking pretty good. Like McMahon, if he continues to play the way he was, that's a good player, right? Nyes, if he takes a step, that's a very good player. Nyes, to me, he doesn't seem like he's going to be like a point a game player guy to me. He's going to be more like that power forward in the playoffs. Like he might put up half a point a game in the regular season or something, but he'll make a difference in the playoffs. He just strikes me as that type. So, and that's all well and good, right? But I think Robertson has to play with better talent for his skill set, right? Because if you look at Domi, he can kind of play anywhere in the lineup. He'll bring something to anywhere in the lineup. It could be first line, second line, third line. But to me, Robertson needs to play with better talent to really shine for his skill set to really come out. So that's something that they're going to have to take a look at. And then the one guy we talked about a few days ago, Greboinkin or whatever his name is, Greboinkin. Yeah. Butchered that a little bit, but I think he's going to be an X factor too. Like he looked pretty good in Russia playing with men. He's only 21 years old. Yeah, so he's gonna shout out Shane. He's gonna look pretty good on the team too. I think if he can figure it out, right? Because the NHL's it might be a little bit more physical, at least in the playoffs, but at the beginning, like there's going to be a learning curve. So if he can, get over that quickly, like we saw it with Mikheyev, if he can get over that quickly, then I think he's going to be a really good player, honestly. So he could be another option. So it's going to be interesting. Like they have a lot of pieces, but if they don't work together, it's going to be a bit of a disaster.
There's a lot of storylines for training camp, specifically preseason. Matthew Nyes, I think, is going to have a good year. I don't know if he's going to, I don't know. I'm curious to see. He obviously was a dominant force in the playoffs, but it's just a matter of if he can actually translate that to a full regular season. And again, you look at some of the stats. Jake McCabe is another guy, 30 years old, 28 points. Like they have a lot of depth pieces. I only have two of the screenshots. I've got the other ones, but they have a lot of depth pieces. Apologies, Darius. But I don't know. I want to ask the chat now as well. So hit the like button if you're new. Shout out to the 70 or so on here. We usually go live every Wednesday. We've been slacking a little bit. Leafs news has been a bit stale as of late, but it was really because I was on a vacation. What would you grade the Leafs offseason up to this point? And Yanni Hakanpää, we're going to say that he's not a Leaf for the sake of your gradings, because I don't think he is. A plus, B, whatever it is, and then we'll get our votes on that as well. Type in the chat what your letter grade is for the Toronto Maple Leafs offseason so far, given what you know at this very moment, which means that they kept Mitch Marner and they kept Nick Robertson. Also hit the like button while you're doing that. But I'm very curious to see, and I guess, Darius, you can give yours as well. It's been a couple weeks now, or 3 weeks since we went live, so we've had some time. No other moves have happened besides re-signing Connor Dewar, and I know we asked this last time. I think my ranking was a B- last time, and I'm probably going to stay there for now.
Yeah, I think mine was a B. I'll just go for the sake of being a little bit different, I guess. But definitely can't go A. I don't think it was a bad. I keep wanting to say trade deadline, free agency period. It definitely wasn't a bad free agency period for kind of, right. And I thought they upgraded in areas that they had to, right. And I think Brad Living was very transparent at the end of the year, and he said we need to get better goaltending. We need to get rid of bad goaltending. And we have to get better defensively in some areas, and scoring's an issue. And I feel like he fixed everything, really, if you look at the lineup, except the scoring thing so far, right? But it's hard to do that with their cap structure. I'm going to keep bringing it back to that. So I like what they did, and everyone's kind of on the same boat, right? B plus, B minus, B, right? So I think he fixed a lot of issues, right? And a lot of people I've heard, talking bad about Ekman Larson as well. I think he's going to be pretty good on this team. I think he's going to fit in. He's going to have a role, right? So I like what I saw from Benoit. Like we were all over Benoit last year, right? And McCabe, that pairing was great too. So lots to look forward to on the defensive side, right? And then with goaltending, they kind of did exactly what we were talking about too. Get a stopgap option, and then you have Hildeby coming. So that's kind of the plan. That's the play, right? Because I don't know who you're going to trade for in terms of goaltending, who hasn't who doesn't have Toronto on their no trade list.
Yeah, and obviously Brody was let go. Gone to
Yep,
Chicago. Don't hate that at all. Robertson was never given a chance with Keith. True.
absolutely.
And I also
Yep.
don't know how many teams in the NHL would get a great grade. I can think of a handful, a few maybe that get A's.
Like Nashville getting A plus, and everyone
Yeah,
else is kind of B and
the Bruins
C.
had an okay for A, but like not many teams were getting A's at all. So I think the Leafs, given the what the other teams did around them, did pretty good. And obviously we're gonna have to see how their draft pick does. That obviously will depend in the future as well. But I think B minus to B plus. If you really like Chris Tanev and OEL, you can give it a B plus. Or maybe you really like Anthony Stolarz. Like there's a chance that he ends up being one of the best signings of the offseason for them if he can, his limited games last season with the Panthers translates into a full season as the 1A. But I don't know.
Mhm.
Toronto needs big wingers to compete in their division with Boston, Tampa. Yeah, they don't have. They still need to add at least one more, uh, one more, one more winger.
Yeah, I think another winger. And somebody just brought up too. Jesse brought up Marner, and I've heard this like quite a bit this offseason too. Moving Marner to center. That would fix a lot of issues for the regular season. He also has to get good at like face-offs, right? Like Tavares is a good face-off guy, but that doesn't really matter. You could take a face-off and then switch positions, right? So that would fix a lot of things for the regular season, but I think Marner would not do well as a center in the playoffs. I don't see that happening. But for the regular season, I think he's a great defensive player, like really underrated defensive player. And I think he would do well in a center spot. But again, come playoff time, I don't see that working out. And again, Tavares is getting slower. He's going to have a different role next year, stuff like that. But yeah, I wouldn't see that working out in the playoffs. But for the regular season, something they could look at. They started Nylander at center last year, right? When things were really starting to get going, and that didn't last long. So he's probably going to end up a winger.
Yeah, I don't. I think at this point they're trying. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna see a much different look. Sorry, under Craig Berube, which is good. All we wanted to see was some change. Now, they kept the core four, which is debatable. We'll say, to say the least. I think it's a debatable thing to do. But to be honest, I'm not exactly sure that Mitch Marner was gonna waive his no move clause really anywhere besides
No,
Vegas, maybe. But even then, like he seemed pretty stand pat with going to free agency after this year, which is worst case scenario for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But I guess we have to just deal with that when it happens there. But I don't know. It's kind of crazy. We're months into the offseason now, and we're talking about the team is very similar to last year, at least the offensive side of it. The defense is completely overhauled, which is good, and I like that.
even
But
even goaltending, really. Like I think Stolar's. There's guys that people talk about where it's like, where did Cam Talbot come from when he was really good with the Oilers? Let's say, right? They come out of nowhere. They sign them on these flyer deals to kind of, come over and see what you can do. So maybe the Leafs are going to get Stolarz in that role because he was good during the regular season
yeah,
last year. He didn't play in the playoffs, but he was good. The stats were there,
he had
right?
one
And the Panthers
appearance,
were a good
one
team.
very short appearance in the playoffs.
It was very short and really bad. And
Let's forget about it. Never happened.
yeah. I think it was the 8-1 game or something,
Yeah,
or
it
8-2,
was.
whatever the final was. Yeah. So he had one appearance. Great. But I think he'll be fine. And if everything goes well, Joseph Woll is going to be your starter in the playoffs anyway. And I like what I see. When he's healthy, he's great, like unreal. So if everything goes to plan and they kind of invest in him like they did with Kawhi, I think things will be okay. So that's all well and good. But honestly, like in terms of the forward and the core four, like if the salary cap didn't exist, obviously if the salary cap didn't exist, but like if no movement clauses, no trade clauses didn't exist, like this idea is done to me. Like I say like Marner would be traded already. This would be long over. Even Tavares, really, if there's no movement clauses involved, right? So that idea to me is done. They're just waiting for things to wrap up with the contracts heading into next year, and that'll be that. Because I think that idea is done. It would be so ridiculous to run that back again.
So what? They just play with Marner and then let him go for nothing? Is that what's going to end up?
I wonder if I think they might be scared. I don't know anything. All right. But I think they might be scared to sign him to a contract extension because he can get like 14 on the open market
Definitely.
somewhere else. He really could. Right. And a team will give that to him. And I think he definitely is wanting to finish the year in Toronto. He wants to play here. He signed, it's in his contract, right? He has those rights. That's all well and good, whatever. But I think the Leafs are kind of scared to let him walk for nothing. But to sign him for like 13 million or whatever he wants, 12 million, it just doesn't make sense for this team. Like if you want to win a Stanley Cup, it doesn't make sense. But if you want to sell jerseys, it makes sense. But Keith Pelly said that's not the case. So
They
we'll
should have
see.
traded him last year is really the
Yeah.
sentiment here when it was possible. And ultimately, The only way it works out at this point for the Leafs and Mariners is if they win the cup this year or make a very deep playoff run, and then maybe both sides will be more incentivized to, if they say, hey, okay, Craig Berube really changed things, the core four looks different, whatever it is. I mean, Tavares is going to have to get a cheap extension, but maybe that's the only way it works out. And then Mariners like, okay, I'll resign, and the Leafs are okay, fine, we can pay him. We made the cup, we made the conference finals, whatever it ends up being. That's the only way. Because if they get eliminated in first or second round again, and then Marner will most likely walk for nothing, I guess they clear the cap space, but getting nothing for that player is a little bit
Tough.
rough. Yeah.
That is tough. Yeah. And I keep bringing this analogy back. Like if you watched our streams before, I keep bringing it back to this because I think it's a good example. But the Washington Capitals in like 2017 were expected to win the Stanley Cup. They had all these great players and all that, right? And they fizzled out, and they kept fizzling out, right? And then finally 2018, I can't remember if that was the exact year Barry Trotz came in as coach or if it was the year before, but Barry Trotz comes in. Things kind of change. Ovechkin changes the way he plays. A lot of their players start changing the way that they play. They succeed. They go through all 4 rounds. They win the Stanley Cup finally, right? And they haven't done much since then, but that doesn't matter. I think a lot of Leaf fans would agree that if the Leafs won a Stanley Cup, they could do nothing for the next 10 years and it would be fine. So I keep bringing it back to that because it was the core players that were there in Washington for like 13 years or whatever it was. They changed the way they played. It wasn't the guys that they brought in at the trade deadline and free agency and stuff like that, because that's what a lot of people think the Leafs need, right? Like, oh, they could use this guy in the bottom 6 or this guy on defense. No, it's the top players on the team, the top 5, top 6 players. If they're not going, they're not going to change the way they play in the playoffs, they will never win. So that's what's next. I think they got to change the way they play, and maybe Berube will do something about that, right?
I think it's gonna be a pretty exciting year. I think it'll be fun to watch the blue line be completely overhauled. But at the same time, you still have the Mitch Marner stuff, and I don't know. It could be the same old song, just played in different words, different
Just
ways,
in a different tune.
in a different tune. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. A different note, like there was for the past few years. But I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see the Nick Robertson front. I mean, I think Nick Robertson's the bigger question right now. Like, I don't think it's a question if Mitch Marner gets traded unless something drastic happens between now and October. But I think the Robertson stuff is more pressing in the sense of I think it's going to happen. The same problems, shortage of scoring, particularly from the bottom 6, will surface in the playoffs once more possible. I'm kind of hoping they get. I see the name thrown in here a couple times. Also, hit the like button. Let's hit the 30 likes or 35 likes actually. It's Alex Nylander. I've seen him get brought up a bunch.
Yeah.
We made a video on him yesterday, I think. I'm losing track, but I think
Yes, it was yesterday. Yes, it was.
So like he makes tons of sense if they trade Nick Robertson. Honestly, he makes sense if they don't trade Nick Robertson. He would be a guy that I would like a lot.
I like Alex Nylander, and there's a lot of questions around like his motivation, right? But I think if he was playing with his brother, there would be some motivation there. And there's no questioning his skill set. The skill is still there. Like he can pop off and score a hat trick. We saw it last year, right? Like out of nowhere. So the skill is still definitely there, and he's still relatively young. So if you put him with his brother, not necessarily on the same line, but the same team, I think that motivation might be there to kind of play better. So I think it could be an interesting fit. And I saw some comments too. People are like, this is not a playoff player. Too much of what the Leafs already have. He's soft, all that stuff, all those narratives. He doesn't have to play in the playoffs, right? He could be a guy who ends up getting healthy scratch in the playoffs, but he comes in and puts up quite a bit of points during the regular season, right? And he can score some goals in regular season. And if there's an injury, he can come in the playoffs and maybe he scores a goal because that's what he does, and he'll play in the bottom 6, right? So that's another interesting option, Alex Nylander, because again, it's not going to cost you much. It'll be a 1-year deal. It'll be league minimum. I like the player. I watched him in junior. Like I've always liked him. I thought he was actually going to be better than William. Hasn't turned out that way, but I still like him as a player. So that would be an interesting fit too. But heading into the playoffs, I would be a little concerned about that maybe, but interesting fit. There's also JVR. There's a few guys.
Yeah, Leafs fans are not happy with the JVR stuff in our video. So maybe no JVR. 31 other teams will line up to max out Marner as a free agent.
Yep. No, it'll happen.
I don't know about 31, Shane. I don't know about 31. Probably like 20.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
like 20.
No, but what he's saying, reading between the lines, he's correct, right? Like
definitely.
There will be a lot of teams backing up the Brinks trucks for Mitch Marner. Oh, what do you want? This number? Great, fantastic. Sign right here, right? And that might happen. So I wonder what's going to happen with that beyond this season. That's the other thing, right? So I do wonder about that, but I don't know. I think it would be a mistake to sign him to 12 million because it doesn't work with the Leafs. So do you let him walk at that point? That's the other question, right?
Such a hard choice. I honestly don't pity Brad for living in that front.
No.
Pity him.
No. And he's already gone through something similar with Matthew Tkachuk, having to trade him because Matthew Tkachuk said he wasn't going to resign, so he traded him for Huberdeau. At the time, it looked like Brad Treliving won that trade. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But
That's fine though, because
um,
Brad's gone. He left. He made that trade in March,
yes,
which is
yeah,
hilarious, actually.
which is hilarious. And now we got him. So, but I don't hate the moves he's made so far as Leafs GM. I have to say, honestly, I was very critical of him in Calgary, and I thought he's done a pretty decent job so far in Toronto. Honestly,
It'll really depend next year. You know, he gets his year of.
yes.
Last year it was his first full year, even though it was kind of like a weird year. Hot take: Marner's the most valuable player in the Leafs. It's pretty hot. I mean,
In
that's no
terms
way.
of what?
There's no
Yeah.
way. Austin Matthews.
I would say Marner's the most valuable player on the Leafs because he plays in the most situations. He can play on the power play, he can play on the penalty kill, he can play 5-on-5. So in that way, if you look at it that way,
I'm still
sure.
giving it to Matthews.
But
Only
absolutely,
because
yeah,
like
absolutely.
I don't know.
That's the only way I could see that like that. That he's the most
Alex,
valuable player. But
Shane is a Marner lover.
Yep.
Both
No,
Shanes.
that's fine. I don't think Marner's a bad player. This is the whole narrative that people are getting mixed up. I don't think anybody thinks Marner's a bad hockey player. He just makes way too much to play on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's it. Right. And I want the Toronto Maple Leafs to succeed. At the end of the day, I'm a fan of the Leafs, not any one player. So
Bill Zito is right. The Leafs have 4 Ferraris but need an SUV.
yeah, I did see that too.
That's
yeah.
a good that's a good
That is
analogy.
good, yeah.
It's a good analogy. I don't know.
Yeah, they have too much of the same. They
Yeah.
have too much of the same. Yeah.
Shane and Darius
Shane's-
think alike. Shane and Darius. Well, you know, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. The Marner stuff, I kind of got, like, at this point, it just is what it is. Like, we're going to watch the Leafs. They'll probably start the season with Marner, and hopefully they can have a really good year. And they have Craig Berube. They have a lot of positive things going for them. And they still have one of the best teams in hockey. It's just a matter of if they can do it in the playoffs.
Yeah. In the regular season, they will be a top 10 team, right? Like, easy.
They should be better than last year in all fronts. Like, their defense is way better. And their goaltending is arguably much better.
Yeah. And see, that's a great call by Catherine too on Alex Nylander. I said it in our video. Sorry, Catherine. Sorry. He's never had a team he could really call home, right? He's been bouncing back and forth, and if he gets a chance to play with his brother, I think he might put something together. So I think the motivation would be there if he played with his brother. I honestly think so. And if they were close together, obviously living in the same city, I think that'd be good. So I could see that working out. Like, he played in Chicago, Buffalo. Like, these are teams that are not good, right? Columbus, even Pittsburgh, right? Like, they didn't really have a spot for him. He's playing the AHL, so he needs a better home, I think. So that could be an option.
Yeah,
but
I mean, that's the question. If they can beat Boston and Florida, maybe. Are you guys upset that they didn't sign Daniel Sprong to 1 year $975? Or we spoke about Sprong last stream, like almost a month ago.
I heard some things behind the scenes. We don't have to really get into it as to why a lot of teams didn't want him.
I heard the same thing, yeah.
I think that that's probably playing into why the Leafs didn't go after him, because on paper it looks great, right? But I heard some things
weird
about behind
things.
the scenes.
Weird.
Yeah. So I think a lot of teams were steering clear.
I'd like to give William Nylander a shot. Or Alex Nylander. Jeez. Alex Nylander a shot. Like, why not? Who else? There's not many else out. Not many other, or not really anyone else out there for vet. Because, like, the Leafs cap it's close. The ceiling is there. So they need a cheap contract.
Yeah. And he would be league minimum for a year. I'm telling you, he would sign that pretty much anywhere. So I wonder if, I wonder if those videos William Nylander were posting of them working out together was kind of like, hey, sign my brother, please. Right. I wonder if that was kind of what that was. So
I'm sure they're having the conversations. Like, they desperately need a winger that can score goals. And that's literally all Alex Nylander does. Like, all he does.
Yeah. And you're right. He wouldn't be bouncing from team to team. That's why I said I thought he was going to be better in 2016. And obviously 8 years later, it hasn't turned out that way. But he scores goals. That's it. He's one dimensional. Right. And I think, like, most people would tell you that. It's fine. Like, if you sign him, you're signing him to do what he does. And I think that's fine. Like, you're not signing him to play on the penalty kill and all this stuff. You're signing him to just chip in for a couple goals here and there. That's fine. He might not even play every night.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. But maybe both.
I think trading Nick Robertson is a mistake. I do.
Yeah.
They have to rekindle that relationship. They have to work with him.
Shout out to the 100 in here. Let's get to 35 likes. We're 11 away. We all like seeing numbers go up.
And if you haven't yet and you're new here, hit the subscribe button. It's free. It is free to hit the subscribe button. So you'll see our videos pop up in your sub box. And it'll be easier to keep up to date with everything Toronto Maple Leafs. So there's that as well.
How can you go wrong for Alex for cheap? Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying. Yeah, that's what we sent our video the other day too.
Yep. It will be cheap. League minimum. 1 year. I think that's good. It's going to be cheaper than JVR or anyone else left on the list, right? It is.
And there's
JVR is
not
kind of
many
old.
left on that list.
No, not that I would want at least, right? You can
We
sign
had
a lot of those guys,
We had a
but
big list going forward.
yeah. And worst case scenario, Nylander goes down to the Marlies, right? But I think he's an NHL player. I think he could play in the NHL. So, and I think they can find him a home on one of these lines. And Berube is going to whip a bunch of these guys into shape. I think they're going to play a lot differently. That's the other thing. The overall structure of the team is going to change. That is so refreshing. I'm so excited for that because they played the same way for the last, which is like a lot of puck possession for the last 6 years or whatever it is. Hasn't worked. Yeah. Go figure. So that'll change. That'll be fun. And lots of new personnel too. Everything mixed together. I feel like instead of just waiting for playoffs, I'm going to enjoy certain games more this year, even the regular season.
Yeah, the last year's regular season seemed the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
Like from 2021, 2022. But at least this year there's something that's different, and that's Sheldon Keefe gone and a much different blue line. A much more mature veteran blue line, I should add.
A lot more. It's going to be better, I think.
Old.
So
it's old.
It's older, which is fine. I mean, that's fine. The way it depends on the way you play, right? So, and they still have Riley. He's not that old, right? He's only 30, I think. So, they still have some speed back there. That was another concern. I feel like they went out and got a bunch of not goons, but like guys like Edmondson who are just going to throw the body around. But then like once they get the puck and Labushkin, like they had no idea what to do with it, right? The forwards weren't getting the puck. That was the other issue in the playoffs, right? Now they have some puck movers. Like Tanev can actually pass you the puck while playing defense, right? And then OEL is more offensively minded. He can move you the puck, right? So they made a lot of good upgrades in areas that they had to. So I'm liking it.
Especially compared to last offseason where they got Klingberg, Reeves, all these guys. And Reeves is back.
New GM.
New GM. It was a hard thing for Brad Treliving to inherit, for sure, though.
Yeah, he wasn't left with much, and I don't want to turn this into a Kyle Dubas dump session or anything like that, but I'm sure Dubas had a plan if he was going to resign, but we always could. But I'm sure Dubas had a plan if he was going to resign, but he left and Treliving came in and was like, what happened here? Like
no second round picks.
At all. And they couldn't make any trades because of it in season, right? That was the other thing. At least.
Any big trades, yeah. They almost beat Boston in Game 7. Still have flashbacks of that.
I think the fact that game went to Game 7 alone, even if you win that Game 7, is Keefe's firing was on the wall already to me. Like that Bruins team was not like, come on, man, you got to beat that Bruins team in my eyes. I'm sorry, but
they weren't great.
Ridiculous.
Really
Ridiculous. No.
I mean,
on paper, that's hockey, right? Like sometimes you'll win, sometimes you'll lose. That's hockey, whatever. I'm not saying, you should beat anyone.
Maybe they would have won if Wall didn't get that freak injury. Maybe they probably would. Even Samsonov played great though. Samsonov would have had a great Game 7.
I don't know. He let in a shaky goal too, and it comes down to those things, right? It comes down to certain things in Game 7s where you need that save, right? And there was 2 opportunities and he didn't, and that's how it goes, right? So, but who knows, right? You never know for sure. They shouldn't have been down 3-1. That's the other thing. They no-showed on home ice in Game 4. So. That's the other thing. That Berube will never let happen. Like,
hopefully,
I feel like he's going to bench some of the stars if they're not going. That never happened with Keefe. It was like, okay, keep going. Try again, guys. Try again.
Like that Amazon documentary with all the Keefe stuff.
Yeah, a lot of good tidbits in that one. If nobody's ever watched that documentary, it's worth a watch even now.
Now's the time to watch it.
It gives you an insight into what has been going on the last 5-6 years. It's crazy. So.
All right. Any final thoughts before we, I think, wrap it up? We have it was good. It was not super long, but it was a solid stream. I'm exhausted. But Darius, it was good to be back. At least it's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while, and it hopefully we're back for a couple more, right, before the season starts. So it'll be fun, but we will be 100%, and hopefully some more
Wednesday,
stuff happens.
Or at least every second Wednesday is probably a more.
Yeah, and I think it'll be more regular during the season, right? There's going to be lots to talk about.
Post-game videos or streams, post-game streams throughout the regular season is going to be.
Should be fun.
If they win.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to this year. It's not just playoffs. I feel like the last couple of years I've just been like, okay, forget the regular season. Just get into the playoffs.
Down. I got you. Get Darius to remind me. That'll be done for next stream.
We have it on the docket. It's coming.
Yeah.
It is coming. So we are aware.
Yeah, I need to do that. My bad, Shane.
Yeah.
It's been like 2 months. I mean, we
Thank you
have
for
ways
keeping
to
us
do it,
honest, though.
but
At
yeah,
least you remind us, right?
I should have
That's
done it
good.
instead of taking my cruise. You're right. Hit the like button on your way out as well. We just hit 30, so shout out to that. But yeah, any final questions, final thoughts before we wrap up? And hopefully next stream, maybe the Leafs added a forward, potentially.
It
Maybe.
could be Nick Robertson. He's still unsigned. That's another thing in all of this. It does not have a contract. So that's going to be interesting.
Oh, there's a lot of no contract. Speaking of Dubas, how did he get the Team Canada job?
Yeah, he's that's right. I saw that yesterday. Named GM basically for Team Canada.
Because
So
he's a phenomenal.
an absolutely awesome GM. I don't think he's that bad as some people think he is, and I might get dumped on for that, but I don't think he's that bad. But
No, I don't think he's terrible. I think
no,
it's okay.
no. Yeah.
Is he better than Brad Living? We don't know.
We wouldn't they should go head to head. We should
I mean,
we should figure
Pittsburgh's in
that
a
out.
pretty rough spot. They're like the oldest team in the league. And
I
then,
think we talk about Bradshaw Living inheriting something that was falling off the rails. Boy, Dubas inherited some horrible stuff over there in Pittsburgh. I don't know how you get out of
yeah,
that.
it's terrible.
But
Looking
anyway.
forward to watching Easton Cowan in the World Junior Summer Show. Summer. Look at that now. Summer
Showcase. Yeah, that'll be fun too. That's always good because you get a look at some of the prospects and the work they're putting in. Heading into
he's a
training
wild
camp
card.
too.
He could be good.
He can make the team. We just opened up another can of worms here. He can make the team. I don't know. I don't think it's the best things for his development, but I also don't think going back to the OHL and like riding in buses for 8 hours and like moseying around on the ice and scoring 5 points a game is good for him either. So
I agree. That'll be that'll be a topic
yeah.
for next stream. We'll go over the Easton Cowan stuff. Will at least finish first. My prediction is no. I don't think so. I think they'll finish second.
Second or third. Yeah.
All right.
They'll be great again.
Thank you all for watching. We have a video for you every single day. So hit the subscribe button. It's free. Subscribe and free subscribe. And then we'll have a video for you every day. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. Take it easy. And thank you all for tuning in. Peace.
Thanks, guys.